At this point, the chair calls on AOA past president and our single accreditation expert, Boyd Boozer, DO. Dr. Boozer.
I have a very positive report for you. I intend to cede most of my time to Dr. Nasca because he has messages that are of relevance to our obligation to report to you on H800. You know, I've spoken to this House many times about the osteopathic profession being a virulent strain and so forth and so on. But as an Iowa farm boy, I actually prefer a different metaphor now for the single accreditation system, and it's related to animal husbandry. And that is the term hybrid vigor. And that refers to a joining of two distinct parents that produce an offspring that is superior to either of the parents. And I believe that that is what we are creating with this single accreditation system for graduate medical education. You all know the history. I put this here so that you can be reminded how long we've been at this. This House, in July of 2014, endorsed the action of the AOA, ACGME, and ACOM boards to move forward with a 5-year transition period for creation of the single accreditation system. We are entering now the 5th year. Program status, I want to draw your attention to 84% of the residencies that, of the 1,244 residencies that we had approved by AOA on July 1, 2015 are now accredited by ACGME. 57% of the fellowships and 47% of the internships, and those have submitted their application or are accredited. 70% of our programs are accredited, and if you see the 51 programs in continued pre-accreditation, 10 in pre-accreditation, those 10 programs are programs that have submitted their application but have not yet been reviewed by the relevant RC. We have 29 programs that have said they're going to apply and 7 still that are unsure. So that leaves us with just over 90 programs still in play during this final year of the transition. One thing, though, I want you all to understand. Since the beginning of this transition, 92% of all the AOA programs that have submitted an application for accreditation to ACGME are now accredited. That's remarkable. So I want you to see that in total, about 70% of the 1,244 programs are currently accredited. And I want you to compare that to this next slide where you see our rural programs, where 75% of those programs are accredited. There's still 5 more of those programs in play. And our teaching health center programs, 85% of those programs are accredited. The success of our rural programs, you can see about 90% of our family medicine programs, just over 80% of our internal medicine programs are accredited, and the total, of course, at the bottom, 75%. We still have internships that haven't submitted their application yet. They're not under obligation to do so yet until the end of this year. And we still have some 1-year fellowships that are working on their applications. Osteopathic GME is alive and well in ACGME programs with osteopathic recognition. What I want you to note on this slide is the slice of the pie there that says ACGME 15%. Since the beginning of this transition, the percentage of programs in that slice has remained remarkably stable, 15, 16, 17%. That slice represents programs that have applied for osteopathic recognition that were previously accredited only by ACGME. Now, these programs are under no obligation. You might ask yourself, why would a program that was previously accredited only by ACGME apply for osteopathic recognition? Well, the answer is clear. They do it because they believe it will give them better access and a better ability to recruit the kind of residents that they believe will be successful in their programs, and that's our DO graduates. Now, I've told you about the percentages of programs that are accredited. If you look at the positions that were filled in July 1 of 2015 and how they have performed, 85% of those positions that were filled as of July 2015 are now accredited in the ACGME system. And the programs, the filled positions in AOA programs, and I know some of these numbers start to get a little bit confusing, but again, we had 8,545 filled positions in all AOA programs as of July 1, 2015. In those same programs, there are now 10,200 filled positions. So growth is continuing to occur. Yes, that's good news. I do want to say a brief word about a closed program analysis here. So in the 10 years prior to the transition, to the start of the transition to the single accreditation system, an average of 45 AOA accredited programs closed per year. So if you look at what has happened over 4 years, there are now currently 191 closed programs. Well, 45 times 4 is 180. So you can see that the closure rate of our programs has not changed significantly during the first 4 years of this transition, and I think it'll be still pretty close to that when we get to the end of the 5th year. I also want to draw your attention to the dark blue piece of the pie there. Those programs, this is a closed program, reasons they closed. So over half of the AOA programs that have closed had no trainees for 3 or more years leading up to, and so we would have been closing them anyway. What about the programs that have closed and how that relates to the number of filled positions that we had on July 1, 2015? The programs that have closed or have told us that they're going to close only make up 9% of the filled positions that we had in July 1 of 2015. So our programs that had trainees have done, as I've noted, remarkably well. How are our students doing in the match? Absolutely effing fantastic. Did I say that right? I'm not sure. I'm in trouble, Mr. Speaker? All right. Our students are doing great. This year, the students that graduated this spring, of those that are seeking GME placement, 98.48% have achieved it. And you look at the sharp increase in the number of graduates that we're producing. Our students, our graduates are doing great. Yep. And our number of certified physicians continues to grow, and as you've heard, AOA board certification is a major initiative of the AOA now and going forward. Last thing I want to comment on here today is, or almost the last thing, is what are we doing to assure that we're protecting residents in programs that might not be accredited by the end of June of next year? We've stated all along that we're committed to protecting those residents and making sure that they will be able to complete their training in a program that's accredited and become eligible for board certification. And we've been working on this. Our Program and Training Review Committee and our Council on Postdoctoral Training have the mechanisms in place to oversee our granted authority to continue accreditation beyond 2020 for those programs that still have residents in them but are not ACGME accredited. So I want to reassure you all that we have our eye on that very strongly. So where are we here really? I mean, if no more programs get accredited by ACGME in this final year, which of course is that's not going to happen. There are only 70 programs that could even still have residents in them at the end of this year. But we really expect that these programs that are still in play, that are still in the process, that are in continued pre-accreditation, that the vast majority of them are going to make it across the line and achieve ACGME accreditation. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague and friend, Dr. Tom Nasca. He has important information about the AOA takeover of ACGME. Thanks.
The chair welcomes to the lower podium Thomas Nasca, MD, President and CEO of ACGME.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Chicago. I have just returned from Iceland. I must tell you, it's significantly warmer here than it is in Iceland. But the warmth is really the warmth of friendship and a colleagueship that we've developed over the last now almost 8 years of work on this project. And we're coming to complete fruition of that project, and I'm pleased to present you some information. You know my background. Most of you have seen this slide, but this is just in case as continuing education credits. I have nothing to disclose, and again, no one would pay me for what I'm going to say to you in a few minutes. We're in the final phase of really what started about eight and a half years ago and culminated in the creation of a memorandum of understanding that led to a 5-year process for the transition to a unified accreditation system. No one said anything about takeover at that time, but we did say that we were committed to being partners moving forward, and I hope to show you data that actually substantiates the contention that we have done exactly what we said we were going to do. One of our goals was to codify the osteopathic tradition in the ACGME, and I believe that we've been successful in doing that. And Dr. Buser pointed out the important influence of osteopathic medicine on allopathic programs, with osteopathic recognition being achieved by a significant number and a continually growing number of allopathic programs, traditionally allopathic programs. And we also committed to not influencing the other phases of the continuum of education and practice, whether it be licensure, certification, or undergraduate medical education accreditation, and I think we've been true to that promise. I do believe we set forth a significant and I think important reason for doing this, and we really believed and continue to believe that this is the right thing for the American public. We believe that it is also the right thing for all of our medical school graduates, no matter what tradition they come from, to have equal opportunity and to have equal access to all of the programs that are available in the country. And I think we are just about there. We have committed to incorporation of leadership from the osteopathic community, equal in numbers per organization to any our other member organizations, and we are nearing the culmination of that. These are your 6 board members from AOA and ACOM who have served admirably on the ACGME board, and in recognition of that, you will see in the bottom there that they serve on all of the important committees, including 2 members of the 8-person executive committee and our vice chair, and not to be premature, but soon to be chair-elect, will be a member of the osteopathic community. Now, one of the things that we promised in the beginning is that we, as a part of the memorandum of understanding, would be that we would incorporate the osteopathic profession into the review process for our residencies. And we now have 67 osteopathic physicians who are members of 25 of our review committees. And we have 4 osteopathic physicians as chairs of review committees and 4 as vice chair. So in addition to your board members of these review committees, because the review committees select their own chairs. They have been selected by their peers because of their distinguishment in their performance as members of the review committee. And I think we should all be very proud of that. By the way, are there any members of the review committees, the ACGME review committees in the room? Could you please stand? I'd like to thank you for your work. And as Dr. Buser mentioned, more than 200 programs now have ACGME osteopathic recognition, and we are looking forward to the programs that are now having achieved initial and continuing accreditation, turning their eyes towards achieving osteopathic recognition. So we expect that number to continue to rise over the next 3 to 4 years as people become comfortable with and understand the nature of the systems and the processes for achieving recognition. Now, I just want to spend a little time speaking with you about this blended opportunity, because one of the concerns that everyone would always have in these kinds of circumstances, well, we're blending, but is there going to be enough room for everybody? And this is a significant concern. It's a concern of the entire profession. Because the osteopathic and the allopathic communities have ramped up their production of and graduation of qualified physicians to enter the next phase of the continuum, but there needs to be a next phase of the continuum available for everyone in order to provide the physicians necessary for the aging and growing population that we all seek to serve. So one of the important things to recognize, and let me tell you what I mean by pipeline programs. We talk about pipeline programs as programs that lead to initial board certification. Transitional year programs or internship programs or preliminary medicine or surgery programs do not lead to initial board certification. They may prepare someone to enter a pipeline program, but we track the number of individuals occupying pipeline positions at the entry level as a manifestation of the capacity of the system. These are accredited positions that are occupied, not just available. So in 2008 and 2009, we had about 25,500 positions. And last year, we had 32,600 positions. That's a significant increase of nearly 30% over a decade. So there is significant growth in the pipeline. As you will notice, that number 30% is not, though, equal to the rate of growth of the domestic production. The domestic production in the osteopathic world is up more than 100% and over the last 20 years, and in the allopathic world is up about 35 to 37%. So we have a challenge ahead of us to continue to grow the graduate medical education network within the United States in order to continue to absorb the number of graduates that are coming from our undergraduate education. And indeed, the number of osteopathic graduates entering the pipeline at the R1 level has more than doubled in the last decade, from 2,100 to 6,000 this past year. Now, this is just a graphic representation of the program count. And the blue line, the bottom line, is the number of pipeline residency programs. And you can see the acceleration starting in, that's actually started in about 2013-14, and then accelerated even further starting in 15 to the present. There's a combination of things going on there. A significant percentage of that increase in number of programs is not a net increase in the number of programs in the nation, because that is the osteopathic residency programs achieving initial accreditation. But the other piece of that is a fairly dramatic and accelerated allopathic production of new programs as well. So about 60% of that was due to the transition to a unified accreditation system, but 40% was due to an accelerated allopathic program creation. So the country is responding. The question is, how long can we sustain this growth? I don't know the answer to that, but that is the challenge that all of us face, is sustaining this growth to absorb the number of increasing graduates that are coming out of our medical schools so that we can prepare more physicians net to serve the American public. The red line is a dramatic expansion, continued expansion in subspecialty programs. We continue to create new subspecialties, and those obviously are available to all of our graduates now. Now, this is the entry-level positions for, in the blue line again, core residency programs, and in the red line, fellowship, entering F1 fellows, no matter how long their fellowship lasts. You can see that the line for fellowships has not been altered significantly by the unified accreditation system, and that is because the allopathic growth in fellowship positions is significantly higher than the number of osteopathic fellowship positions that exist. If you remember back, that was one of the major motivators for the creation of the single accreditation system, was to make sure that there was access for all graduates, including all of the osteopathic graduates, to this expanding network of subspecialty training. And obviously, we have accomplished that goal. The second point to make is that the expansion in the positions continues at a baseline level of expansion of about 440 positions per year. That's the baseline background allopathic position growth in pipeline programs. That has accelerated, and then we have the addition of the occupied previously osteopathic programs on top of it, accounting for that fairly dramatic push up. The push up goes from 28,500 to 32,000. So a 4,000 position uptick in just 3 years. Some of it from the osteopathic conversion to the unified accreditation system, and a significant amount of it, again, background allopathic expansion, which is open to every trainee. So we had 32,600 residents entering the pipeline last year. Of that, nearly 6,000 were graduates of osteopathic medical schools. Nearly every one of your graduates enrolled last year in the ACGME pipeline. And you can see that the total number of residents in ACGME accredited programs has more than doubled in 5 years. It's absolutely an amazing movement across. And this is just shown graphically. This is the pipeline again, and you can see the top line, the largest number, the blue line, are the growth in allopathic positions really over the last 18 years. The gold line in the middle are international graduates. An international graduate pool is a mixed pool of true international graduates and U.S. citizen international graduates. And you can see that that number has grown about 1,000 over that same period of time. And then the green line are the osteopathic graduates, and you can see in 2001 that number was 1,500, and last year it was nearly 6,000. So a quadrupling of the number of osteopathic graduates in ACGME accredited training programs. There have been over the years myths about all of our organizations. One of the things that we've been able to do is demystify both sides of this discussion, and what we see is that the ACGME institutions, really 85% of them are in community-based settings, some of them significant numbers in rural-based settings, and only 15% are academic medical centers, despite the myth in the osteopathic community that all of our programs are in academic medical centers. The similar myths have been dispelled about the osteopathic world, that there are only family medicine programs in small communities. Both myths have been dispelled. Now, one of the challenges and one of the questions and one of the leaps of faith that we all took in the beginning of this process was that we would create a memorandum of understanding that would cover the transition, and then things would work out by the usual processes of the ACGME. And one of the questions then revolved around resident eligibility for fellowships. And now in the common program requirements, recently approved and effective this past July, all residency positions in the ACGME are open to all AOA program graduates. This is not just historical significance. This has real operational significance for individuals who are in programs that have just transitioned over, or who have transitioned over, for instance, work for a few years as a hospitalist and then apply for fellowships. Previously AOA accredited graduates are now eligible for ACGME accredited fellowships across the board. The program director requirements obviously recognize both boards in the MOU, and in our common program requirements, the same thing, and it's the same thing for faculty. So in our common program requirements now, both the ABMS boards and the AOA boards are specifically recognized as being acceptable criteria or credentials for faculty and program directors. Now, what about our challenges? Well, the first is that we have, as Dr. Buser mentioned, we have this core of programs, many of whom have been cycling through, and they continue, most of them continue to make progress, and we are hopeful that this group becomes successful. I have no promises, I have no planned numbers, I can't give you, I do not enter directly into the accreditation process in my role. It would not be appropriate. One of the goals we commit to is continuing to solve problems program by program to try and help all of these programs that remain to be successful. And I think we've made good on the promise that osteopathic recognition is permanently integrated into the current and future ACGME. So in summary, we've made tremendous progress. We're not quite there yet. I hope to be able to summarize a very successful final year for you this time next year. 92% of the, as Dr. Buser mentioned, 92% of the previously AOA accredited programs who applied have been accredited. All elements of the MOU have been successfully implemented. The final board members will be consummated next year, and the criteria of the MOU that made this transition possible, all of those elements are now contained in our common program requirements and will be durable into the future. I think the other promise I made to you was that I would stay around to make sure that this happened. I see Paige Avedon, my communications leader, in the back laughing. She knew this was coming. So I did sign another contract, and I promise you I will be here next year, God willing, to announce the consummation of the unified accreditation system. Now I'm going to quote Dr. Still once again. Interestingly, he was an MD and a DO, and I think his words were prophetic. Let us not be governed today by what we did yesterday, nor tomorrow by what we do today. For day by day, we must show progress. And all of you know I'm from Brooklyn, and Yogi said it best, the future ain't what it used to be. Thanks very much.
Dr.